Okay. All right. This time we're going to call the meeting of the Tennessee Board of Funeral Directors and Embalmers to order. It is Tuesday, September the 8th, 2020, and this is our meeting via WebEx. And at this time, I'm going to call on Miss Lisa Bohannon, if you would, to call our roll.
Fred Berry.
Present.
Anthony Harris.
Here.
Michelle Haynes.
Here.
Clark McKinney.
Here.
Charles Rom. Robert Shackelford.
Here.
Mr. President, 5 of the 6 board members are present.
Thank you. Now we will have a statement of necessity. Miss Elizabeth Mendel.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is a telephonic scheduled meeting of the Board of Funeral Directors and Embalmers. Notice of the September 8th, 2020 meeting was, including the date and time, was posted to the board's website on November 12th, 2019. Additionally, this month's agenda was posted to the website on September 3rd, 2020. As there is not a physical quorum present, a statement of necessity will be read into the record and filed with the Tennessee Secretary of State. Pursuant to TCA 8-44-108B2, which states, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, then in order for a quorum of members to participate by electronic or other means of communication, the governing body must make a determination that a necessity exists. Furthermore, TCA 8-44-108A3 defines necessity as matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require timely action by the body, that physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary. As stated, this was a previously scheduled meeting of the board that is now being held telephonically, and the purpose of this meeting by a teleconference is to conduct regular business, and voting will be conducted by roll call.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bendel. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt our agenda today as printed.
This Anthony, I make a motion.
Second by Fred.
By Mr. Harris and a second by Mr. Berry. Ms. Bohannon, would you call a roll?
Fred Berry. Anthony Harris.
Yes.
Tanya Haynes.
Yes.
Clark McKinney.
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Next item on our agenda is to review and approve the minutes of the June 9th, 2020 meeting. I think we had those in advance.
Fred, I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Berry to approve the June 9th, 2020 minutes.
Second by Robert Shackelford.
Second by Mr. Shackelford. Any comments? All right, Ms. Bohannon, call a roll.
Fred Berry.
Yes.
Anthony Harris.
Yes.
Tanya Haynes.
Yes.
Charles Rom. I'm sorry, Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Clark McKinney, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That motion carries, and let's see, review and approve August 11 minutes.
Be ready for the next meeting, Mr. President.
Okay, all right. That's kind of what I thought, but you're still on a roll. All right. The next thing is the legal report. Miss Elizabeth Bendel, Associate General Counsel.
Hello again. This one's a little shorter than last month. So item number 1 is complaint 2020-03-6481 against an establishment with some disciplinary history. This was a competitor complaint against the respondent alleging misleading and deceptive practices. Specifically, the complainant had alleged that the respondent is advertising merchandise that is not found in their current price list and is using source documents that are not in use. The complainant additionally alleged that they were provided a March 2020 price list, despite the May advertisement indicating they were listing April 2020 prices. The respondent did provide a response to this complaint, and they indicated that they made an honest mistake in providing the complainant with the March 2020 price list. However, no pricing was publicized other than their current pricing list, and none of the itemized pricing was different. The respondent additionally stated that they had provided all families with the source documents. And the respondent did provide documentation to this. And the complaint did provide a rebuttal disputing the respondent's response, and then the respondent provided additional documentation indicating otherwise. Because of this back and forth and because it's a competitor complaint, it's legal's recommendation at this point to do a letter of warning.
Okay. I was noticing, looks like there's a previous complaint in 2017. Is that pretty? Is that close to the same thing?
The 2017 complaint, I believe that complaint was based on an inspection. I can confirm that for you, but I don't believe it was also a competitor complaint.
Okay.
Also, the ownership of the establishment has changed subsequent to the 2017 complaint as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Mr. Fred, I'll make a motion to approve council's recommendation.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Berry to accept council's recommendation.
Second by Robert Shackle.
And a second by Mr. Shackelford. Any questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Bohannon.
Fred Berry,
Yes.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Next item.
Item number 2 is complaint 2020-03-7111 against an establishment with some disciplinary history. And this was a complaint against the respondent by a competitor as well, the rebuttal alleging misleading and deceptive practices. Specifically, the complainant had alleged that the respondent is advertising merchandise on their website that is inconsistent with the pricing on their casket price list. The respondent did provide a response to this, and they indicated that they had updated their website in January and failed to notice some of the discrepancies. They indicated that they had updated all the discrepancies, and they stated that they never intended to confuse or mislead the public. It's legal's recommendation to provide a letter of warning with this as well.
Okay.
This is Anthony. I'll make a motion. We accept advice and do a letter of warning.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Harris to accept council's recommendation.
Second by Fred.
And a second by Mr. Berry. Any comments or questions? All right, Ms. Bohannon.
Fred Berry,
Yes.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Next case.
Item number 3 is complaint 2020-03-7131 against an establishment. Just for the record, this is the same complainant from item number 1, and it's by the management as the same respondent as item number 1. So it's a competitor complaint against the respondent alleging misleading and deceptive practices. They allege that the respondent is advertising merchandise that is not found in their current price list. The respondent did provide a response as well as documentation and indicated that their current price lists do reflect all of their merchandise that is available. Again, the complainant had provided a rebuttal, and the respondent did reply to that rebuttal as well, and provided additional documentation. It's legal's recommendation to do a letter of warning for this one as well.
Okay, thank you.
This is Fred. I'll make a motion to approve council's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Berry to accept council's recommendation,
Anthony will second.
and a second by Mr. Harris. Any comments or questions? All right, Ms. Bohannon.
Fred Berry,
Yes.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Next item.
Item number 4 is complaint 2020-03-9231 against the funeral director with no disciplinary history. This is a consumer complaint alleging unprofessional conduct by the respondent. Specifically, the complainant alleged that in May 2020, they held their nephew's funeral services at the respondent funeral director's establishment, and it was live streamed on Facebook. The complainant states that the respondent was heard on the live stream screaming to the point where the live stream had to be cut off. Additionally, the complainant states that the respondent was informed that the complainant states that they were informed that there could be 25 individuals at the service, but that on the date of the service, the respondent began yelling that there were too many people after 20 people had arrived. The complainant further indicated that the respondent was yelling at staff and had the police called. They indicated that the entire ordeal was disturbing to the family. The respondent did provide a response to this complaint, and they indicated that there were more than 25 people in attendance and that he kept reminding the attendees of the COVID-19 mandate and the need for social distancing. The respondent stated that the police were called by a staff member for the protection of the attendees and the staff, and he stated that he was unaware that there was a live stream interfering. The respondent apologized for their behavior and indicated that they did not intend for their statements to be rude or insensitive. Based on the fact that there's no disciplinary history, it's legal recommendation to do a letter of warning for this one.
Okay.
This is Anthony. I'll make a motion. We accept council's recommendation, letter of warning.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Harris to accept council's recommendation.
Second by Robert Shackelford.
And a second by Mr. Shackelford. Any comments or questions? All right, Ms. Bohannon.
Fred, excuse me, Fred Berry, Fred Berry,
Yes. Yes. Can you not hear me?
1 second, I'm sorry. Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes, she's on the phone.
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Next item.
Items number 5 and number 6 have the same set of facts, and it's legal recommendation to do the same, so I'm going to read them both at the same time.
Okay.
Item number 5 is 2020-04-8691 against an establishment, and item number 6 is complaint 2020-04-8181 against the funeral director. These were a consumer complaint alleging unprofessional conduct by the respondent. The complainant alleged that in May 2020, they met with the respondent and funeral personnel to say goodbye to a family member before cremation. The complainant stated that in removing the body, which was on a mortuary cot, from the hearse, the employees dropped the body on the pavement, to which his head hit the pavement multiple times. The complainant further indicated that the gurney flipped over and the complainant's husband had to help the employees. The complainant stated that when they were finally able to view the deceased was dirty, dressed in someone else's clothes, and covered in bugs. The respondent did provide a response to this complaint, and they indicated that the deceased was strapped to the stretcher and that there was an issue with the wheels of the stretcher failing to engage. However, the deceased never rolled off the stretcher. The respondent apologized to the complainant and has worked with the complainant to resolve the situation. The complainant will receive a full refund for their services. The respondent also indicated that additional training will be provided to all employees regarding the use of stretchers. And the respondent indicated that the deceased was dressed in the clothes from the rehabilitation facility where he passed away and denies that there were any bugs on the deceased. It's legal's recommendation to close both of these complaints.
This is Robert Shackelford. When a full refund is offered, does the board ever follow up to make certain that that refund was indeed granted?
Yeah, so I did reach out to the respondent. I haven't heard back. I've been in communication with them in the past. I can confirm, and if you want to close and confirm at the next board meeting that a refund was provided, I'd be happy to do so.
If the refund can be confirmed, then I would be comfortable with your recommendation of closure.
Okay.
Is,
This is Fred. I'll second that.
okay. Have a motion by Mr. Shackelford and a second by Mr. Berry to accept council's recommendation. Do we need to say pending that we clarify that
I
there?
can close. So I can close and flag it. So I can confirm that a refund was made, and then if we need to reopen it at the next board meeting, we can do so.
Okay, thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, Ms. Bohannon?
Fred Berry,
Yes.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion carries. Next.
The last two items are complaint 2020-05-7791 against an establishment and complaint 2020-05-7801 against the funeral director. This was on July 16, 2020, a board field representative performed an inspection of the respondent establishment. During the inspection, the representative discovered that the respondent funeral director had been in continuous employment as the manager of the respondent establishment while their license was invalid on June 30th, 2020. The respondent did respond to the complaint, and they indicated that they had received incorrect information regarding an extension for renewals, and they apologized for the lapse. The respondent's license is currently active and was renewed on July 17th when the citation was issued. So it's legal's recommendation to do a authorization for a formal hearing and authorization for a civil penalty of $500 against the establishment, and then for the funeral director, do a letter of warning based on no disciplinary history.
Ms. Bendel, it's Anthony. Is there a reason why we would not do the same penalty with the director, him being the manager, that we're doing with the establishment?
Based on the establishment's disciplinary history, they have a past of failing to file a change of ownership application, which is a similar violation. The funeral director, like I said, has no history of any discipline, so it's just legal's recommendation to do a letter of warning. If you'd like to up it, I'd be happy to do so.
It's just my thoughts. The manager ought to know when the establishment license is expiring. That's part of the manager's role. That's just my opinion.
It was his personal license, the funeral director's license.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
It's okay. They have. I think I might have confused it with their past disciplinary history of an ownership application issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
This is Fred. I just one question. Was there a time that due to COVID that the board had extended the time frame for renewals?
There was an extension for continuing education in one of the executive orders. There wasn't, I can confirm that, but I believe there wasn't an extension. There might have been a miscommunication in terms of that continuing education piece affecting renewals.
It's my understanding that the miscommunication was the respondent alleges that they were told they had 60 days to renew beyond the expiration date. I don't think there was a confusion between the possible extension for CE and the drop dead date for the expiration of the license. But it was the respondent told me that he called and he was given verbal information that he had 60 days and he thought he could still continue to practice, is my understanding. He had somewhere in the process from the last renewal to this renewal, it's my understanding he had changed his mailing address, or his mailing address had changed, but he had not notified the board of that.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Of the late fees. Oh, that's all right. Remind me of the late fees that are incurred when an expired license is renewed within that 60-day grace period.
Well, it's actually, they're given 90 days. There's a law passed a couple of years ago that extended that 60 days to 90 days. The late penalty is $200 per license, for the $200 for the funeral director and $200 for the embalmer. But what some licensees do not understand, or evidently don't understand, is the law also says you shall not practice on the expired license. So that simply gives you the time to renew it without having to take any test or make reapplication by paying a late fee. It doesn't allow you to continue to practice until you've renewed it.
So was this director then charged the late fee? Is that the understanding?
Yes, he has paid a late fee to renew his funeral director and his embalmer's license.
Okay.
All right, there's any more questions? Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
This Anthony, I'll make a motion. We accept legal's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Harris to accept council's recommendation.
Fred, I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Berry. Any further comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Bohanna.
I just want to clarify that this recommendations are for both the funeral establishment and the funeral director's recommendation, correct?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Fred Berry,
Yes.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Bendale.
Thank you all.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the executive director's report. Mr. Robert Gribble.
Good morning. First of all, we have a legislative update, and we have nothing to report on that at this time. Next is our licensee report. This is a report of license administratively approved by the executive director pursuant to the board authority for the period of August 8, 2020 through September 3, 2020, and you have a list of those and the type of license that has been approved and issued. Closed establishment report. There's one establishment reported closing since the last board meeting, and that's Forest Hill Funeral Home in Memorial Park South at 2545 East Holmes Road in Memphis. The disciplinary action report is a report of consent orders that have been administratively accepted and approved by the executive director pursuant to board authority, and as reported on the July 2020 regulatory board's disciplinary action report. So you have a list of funeral homes and an individual there that disciplinary action has been taken, the violation and what the civil penalty was, and the cost where it was applicable. A complaint report for this board meeting today, as of September 3, 2020. There were 20 complaints for funeral directors and/or embalmers, or apprentice funeral directors and apprentice embalmers, and 34 complaints against the establishment, for a total of 54 complaints. That concludes my report. I'll be glad to answer any questions that any board member might have.
Okay. All right, Chair will entertain a motion to accept the director's report.
This is Fred, so moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Berry
It's Anthony, I'll second.
and a second by Mr. Harris to accept Mr. Gribble's report from Ms. Bohannon.
Sorry. Fred Berry,
That was an unaudible yes.
Yes.
There you go.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. At this time, we have approval of license applications. Mr. Gribble, we don't have any individuals before us today. Is that correct?
That's correct. You do not have any individuals, and you do have two establishments. The first one, and Mr. Hatch, if you want to go ahead and turn your video on. The first one is Edward Hatch Funeral Directors. Edward C. Hatch is the manager, located at 3918 Dickerson Pike, Suite 109 in Nashville. It was an application for a new establishment. It's owned by a corporation, United Funeral Care Incorporated, at 230 Kenneth Drive in Nashville, Tennessee.
All right. Mr. Hatch, if you would, we've heard from Mr. Gribble. Would you kind of want to introduce yourself and just tell the board what you're wanting to do, and while we look over your paperwork?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're actually starting and basically just doing arrangements out of the office. Embalming is done, will be done at TLC Mortuary.
Okay.
This is Anthony. I have a couple questions. Is this establishment in a location with other suites, or is it a standalone? Because the one picture looks like you go down a hall where there's other suites. Just some clarification there.
Yes, there are other suites.
This is Robert Shackelford. A question about TLC's establishment license. I'm assuming it has been renewed, but the one that they submitted with their letter dated July 24th has expired effective July 31st of this year. Can you verify that they renewed their license?
I did give that to Mr. Casey.
I believe I note too in the application that the restrooms for the facility are shared by all of the other office spaces within that suite. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Hatch, is there a entrance directly into your office from the outside?
You walk from the outside, you enter into, and then to the right, you go down about 20 feet to my office into a separate door.
Okay. If I recall, it seems to me like that this facility or proposed facility is very similar in circumstances to the one that we denied application 2, 3, 4 months ago. Other than perhaps the sign outside.
It's a private office. It's not shared with any other. It's a separate suite. You know, it has its own rest. There should be no interference from any of the other offices in that building.
I agree
Mr.
with President McKinney's observation. We recently denied an application for a very similar situation. I do not believe I could, in good conscience, grant this application based upon that previous denial.
That is my concern.
It's, if I may, it's no different. It's the setup. It's the same as cremation service here in Nashville. So, like I say, you know, you're walking into the building, and there is, like I said, private entrance into my suite.
Once you get into the building, but there's not an entrance or an exit from your office to the outside.
That you enter in my office, you would go back out that door and then back out the main door to the street.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the that you have referenced, but I do recall the case that we had a few months ago, and this is very, very similar to it.
This is Fred. Can I ask Mr. Gribble to clarify if he recalls on the previous case, was the issue on that one with signage? And can you clarify, does our rules and regulations require a dedicated entrance into the office, or can it be a shared entrance?
I'll be glad to speak to part of it, and I think probably legal needs to speak to part of it. There's a photo that the field rep made when he did an inspection here, and Mr. Hatch may want to talk to this, but there's one door, and it says suites. These suite numbers are on that one door, 109, 111, and 112. That's in part of the photos. There's a statute that requires a fixed place of business, and then the board has some rules. And at the end of the day, it's for the board members to make a determination whether or not the application meets and satisfies those statutes and rules regarding a fixed place of business.
I can speak to the fixed place of business if you want me to, Robert.
Okay, go ahead.
Some of the factors that the board, I think we considered at that application that we had denied a few months back, were whether the establishment, if it's located within a business complex, whether the establishment is clearly separated from any other entity located within the complex and clearly distinguished. That was one of the factors that I know was a focus. And then any evidence at that proposed place of business that suggests activity other than that is incidental to the care and preparation of dead human bodies. And there's other factors such as signage and then the volume of preparation services and advertising materials. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to mention, Robert.
Mr. Hatch, this is Robert Shackelford. Can you tell us when the license was granted for the other entity that you mentioned? I believe you said Premier Funeral Services.
It was in, I believe, 2018, November of 2018.
Mr. Gribble, are you familiar with that establishment?
I'm in the process of looking it up. My computer is real slow right now.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the name. I remember the name, but I don't remember the particulars of it. Of course, the composure of the board has changed some since that time as well. If that was when it was.
President, I'm just concerned we need to be very consistent on these, and it's a little difficult not having the past history to understand if we are being consistent.
I understand.
The one that Mr. Hatch brought up, it's at 805 Bradford Avenue, Suite 104 in Nashville. And then I'm familiar with another establishment that's in a suite that the other one I'm thinking about is in a professional office complex that has other entities or establishment, or not a funeral establishment, but other businesses in that complex. It's, like 2 or 3 or 4 floors, something like that. I'm familiar with that one. Ms. Mendel, when was the rule changed the last time? We have that. Would it be correct that you're on mute?
She's on mute.
Sorry, I said, I believe 2018, there was an amendment to that particular fixed place of business.
That's what I was looking at. The amendment was filed December 12, 2018, and it was effective. The new rule was effective March 12, 2019. Is that correct, Ms. Mendel?
That is correct.
Ms. Bendel, this is Anthony. Am I hearing correctly? By that rule, the business in the suite has to be able to stand out from the other businesses that are in that suite. Is that correct?
So the rule itself gives factors for you guys to consider, and one of the factors is that if it is located within a business complex, whether it's clearly separated. So it allows you guys discretion, but it's a factor to consider.
And I sort of agree with Fred and Mr. Shackelford as well. I mean, looking at the picture with all the doors, to me, I can't really tell the difference going down that hall.
Other
Maybe
than,
I'm,
thank you, other than the signage out on the sign out on the street, I don't see that this one, in my mind, is any different than the one we denied. And of course, I respect all of your own decisions, and we'll do whatever. But I can't, in good conscience, um, support this application in this particular facility. I think the guy that we turned down a few months ago would be very, very upset if we did. And so,
Mr. President, it's Anthony. I agree with you on that. Is that a motion? If so, I will second that.
no, I'll let y'all make the motions
Okay. I will make the motion that we stay consistent and deny this application.
based on the fixed place of business,
Absolutely.
and so forth. Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Harris to deny this application. Is there a second?
Second by Robert Shackelford.
Okay, second by Mr. Shackelford. Any comments or questions from any of the board members? Okay, Ms. Bohannon, would you call a roll?
Fred Berry,
Yes.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, Mr. Hatch. Mr. Gribble, the next application?
The next application is Brent Taylor, Paul B. McCarver, funeral directors. James Mark Ballard is the manager at 948 Reddick Cove in Memphis. And it's a new establishment. It's a LLC. The owners is Brent Taylor, Paul B. McCarver, funeral directors LLC, 386 Pisgah Road North in Eads, Tennessee. Mr. Taylor, are you on the line? You want to turn your video on and make an opening statement to the board?
All right, I
think
believe
he's
my
going to
video is on. I believe my video is on, if you could confirm that.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Okay, great. Good morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Mr. President, can I interrupt just a second?
Yes.
I will need to recuse myself on this one.
Okay, let the record reflect that Mr. Berry is recused on this application.
Anthony as well, please.
Okay. And Mr. Harris also. All right, Mr. Taylor.
All right, thank you. First, I want to say that working with Ms. Bohannon and Mr. Bozeman they both were good to work with, as well as Mr. Gribble. During this process, I will tell you, this took a very long time, much longer than I expected, because it is incredibly difficult to start a funeral home from scratch, construction, everything else in the middle of a pandemic. So my timing wasn't real good on trying to get this up and off the ground in a few months. But I really appreciate everyone's effort in helping to help us through this application process. Also, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your service. I've been in a similar situation. I've served on the city council in Memphis and the county commission in Shelby County, and currently on the election commission. So I understand the challenges you all are going through with these virtual meetings and the technology, and it just isn't the same as in-person meetings. But nonetheless, we press on, and I appreciate your efforts to try to master this technology so that those of us who need licenses can get them. The purpose of me wanting to do this is quite simply, every week I have people who call me that know me from my city council and county commission days, and they have an ailing parent who's about to die, and they want to know if I can assist them because they know I'm in the funeral business. And when I currently tell them my nearest funeral homes are either in Hernando, Mississippi, or in Millington, Tennessee, or Munford, Tennessee, I might as well say which of my locations would serve you better, the one in Cody, Wyoming, or Butte, Montana. And it just seems that those two suburban locations are too far away. So what I've done, I've identified a building. We've renovated it to serve really as an arrangement center, so that those families I can tell, yes, I can help you. We have a facility in East Memphis, and we're going to specialize primarily in graveside services and church funerals. The facility itself does not have a visitation room or a chapel, but it does have a selection room, a couple of arrangement offices, a general office, and some pre-need offices and so forth. So that's really what I'm attempting to do, is just to have a facility where I can serve some of the families who currently know me and and they want to work with me, but I just don't have a facility close enough to them, so they don't have to drive 30 miles either out of state or to my other facility in Millington. And lastly, I'll close with this. The other locations that I have, the location in Millington will be the location that will do all the removals and the embalming. And I know that was one of the things we included in our packet was a written agreement between Brent Taylor Funeral Directors and Millington Chapel that they would be doing our embalming. So I hope that presentation answered a lot of your questions, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Now I've seen the photographs of the facility, and you are the only occupant of that building. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And just for the record, since we just had another application, and you're the only occupant of that building, and then plus there's direct access when you go in, you're there. So
yes, sir. When you come in out of the parking lot into the door, you're immediately in our lobby, and we don't share the building with any other tenants.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other comments or questions from any of the other board members?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion, but I'm not part of the board, so I'll have to get there.
Okay, it's going to be, well, with the three of us left, it's going to be up to Mr. Shackelford and Ms. Haynes.
This is Robert Shackelford. I do have a question. I noticed the letter that authorizes the use of a facility for removals and embalming, and I might be paraphrasing that. I don't have the letter directly in front of me now, but it mentions a different entity, Harrison's, I believe, is mentioned in that letter from Munford Funeral Home. It talks about Harrison's. Could you clarify a little bit?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so there's a letter dated, I believe, September 1st. Let me see if I can get back to it and not lose you. I'm not real technologically proficient, but it's from Munford Funeral Home in Millington, and it's granting permission for Harrison's Funeral Services, I believe it is, to utilize their facility as far as embalming is concerned, and that name does not show up anywhere else that I have seen in your application.
Well, correct. Harrison's Funeral Home, I have no connection to Harrison's Funeral Home other than they bring their bodies to our prep facility, and their embalmer comes and embalms on our table. And so that's the only connection to Harrison. And what I'm looking to do would be similar situation. It's just that I will own both entities, in this case, Brent Taylor Funeral Directors and Munford Funeral Home Millington Chapel.
Okay, I think where the confusion is the letter dated September the 1st says Munford Funeral Home Millington Chapel will allow Harrison's Memorial Chapel to use the preparation facilities at 7450 Raleigh Millington Road. Is that correct, Mr. Shackford?
Yes, that was why I was asking for some clarification. I did not see any correlation between the two. I didn't really see the purpose for that being in the application. Just wanted some additional clarification.
Okay. Yeah, let me, if I may look at my documentation here, it may be that we inadvertently sent the wrong letter. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that letter. The letter I've got that I submitted, that I have in my records that I submitted to the state, read Munford Funeral Home, Millington Chapel will allow Brent Taylor, Paul McCarver funeral directors in Memphis, Tennessee to use a preparation facilities located at the Millington Chapel, 7450 Raleigh Millington Road, Millington, Tennessee, 38053 until further notice. That's the letter that I have in my records that we submitted to the state. So if you've got a letter different than that, I'm not familiar with it, except to say that Harrison does in fact use our prep facility. But I'm not sure how that letter would have gotten incorporated in the packet that we submitted.
I might be able to shed some light on it. It looks like this letter was faxed to the office probably on September the 1st at 11:44 a.m. from Millington Chapel. And it may have been that the admin assistant, since this application was pending and it came from one of your entities, maybe instead of getting it to the Harrison core licensing system to the Harrison file, it got inadvertently put in this one, and the other one may have gotten switched. You could send us that letter, Mr. Taylor, if the board wanted to see that. You could email that to me today. Could you?
I can, yes, sir.
Or fax it, either one, to the office, either, or to Ms. Bohannon, either one of us, if the board wants to see it.
Yeah, and matter of fact, if I may add, this letter that I'm looking at was dated February 21st, 2020. So again, I'm not real sure how the Harrison letter would have gotten into our file, but Mr. Gribble's explanation seemed reasonable.
Okay. Okay. I am going on what the board has done in the past. I'm okay with approving this application, and I'll let Mr. Shackford and Ms. Haynes make a motion of whatever their will is.
This is Robert Shackelford. I'll move to approve the application as presented.
Okay, have a motion by Mr. Shackelford to approve this application.
Tanya, I'll second it.
And Ms. Haynes, second. Ms. Bohannon.
Excuse me, Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries, and congratulations, Mr. Taylor.
All right, thank you. And if I may, two things. I'll email the letter to Mr. Gribble. And my other question is, at what point will we be able to begin operation? Obviously, you approved it today. Is that effective immediately?
Mr.
Gribble. We'll get you a license issued and emailed to you, hopefully today, if not today, but tomorrow, but hopefully today.
All right, great. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Any new business to come before the board today? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Fred.
All right, a motion by Mr. Berry to adjourn.
Second by Anthony.
Second by Mr. Harris. Ms. Bohannon.
Fred Berry,
Yes.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you all for being here with us today. Thank you.